I always have to start off with a yawn because I thought I was going to be all up for this, and then I was upstairs doing my research for the show, and I got sleepy, but it's okay. Hello, this is Dylan Lang. It's Friday, January 17th, 2025. Brand new episode of Dylan Knows, really early this year, this week. Told you last week that Wednesday, not Wednesday, Saturday, tomorrow, when I usually do my show, I will be down in the Eastern Shore at a family get together, but we'll be driving back the same night. So the event's over is at 6, takes 3 hours to get down there, so leave at 3 o'clock. Hopefully leave about 10 o'clock from the party and get back up here about 1 a.m. Sunday we were supposed to have another family event, but with the forecast of 3 to 6 inches of snow starting in the morning, going all day, I'm beginning to not really want to go travel anywhere in the snow. Plus, we have to pick up my son from camping and my daughter from her friend's house. So, should be an interesting weekend. Plus, it's also the divisional playoff round. The Washington Commanders, my wife's team, and my second team, will be playing the number 1 seed Detroit Lions, 8 o'clock on Saturday. So, we'll probably be watching some of that down at the party tomorrow. And then my team, Baltimore Ravens, will play at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. So, again, it's going to be another late night and stuff like that. The only time I probably would have been able to do a show during the weekend that I have this weekend would be if we decide not to go down to Olney on Sunday because of the snow and do it in the afternoon before the Ravens game. But there's no telling what is going to be going on. So I figured I'd get it out of the way today because there's a lot to talk about, particularly a big event that happened yesterday that crushed me like it hasn't. That crushed me like no other. I'll talk about that too. Plus another big story that doesn't affect me anymore, but as one of my former employers are in some big trouble. And Neil Gaiman's in the news with his horrible stuff. Plus we got some other things to go over. So I think the first part of this episode is going to be heavy with chit-chatting about stuff. I'll get to the big news after I clear out these smaller stuff. There's at least 3 things I want to talk about here for a little bit of time, I guess, before I get to the rest of the show. But first up, polar vortex is due to hit us, which is disgusting. They are saying the snowstorm on Sunday is going to be the leading edge of the polar vortex. And it's going to drop the temperatures down on Monday to 20 degrees as a high and 7 as a low. Tuesday is going to drop the temperature to 18 degrees as a high and 2 degrees as a low. And Wednesday is going to be dropping temperature to 17 degrees as a high and 5 degrees as a low. Thursday, we're getting a little bit back up to the higher levels. It'll be 9 degrees as a low, 26 degrees as a high. And next Friday, 16 degrees as a low, 35 degrees as a high. So we'll start getting into some normal temperature. Saturday, 35, Sunday, 37 next weekend. But that's next weekend. We still got to get through this weekend. Now, this weekend, 42 degrees and 35 degrees isn't too bad. But we do have the snow forecast on Sunday. So we'll see what happens. So that's what's going on with that. Not looking forward to that at all. I can tell you that right now. We had some snow on Friday. So far, we've had snow every week except for the first through the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. First through the 5th of January, we did not have snow, but every week since then we have. And it looks like it's going to continue to be that way as well. There are a bunch of new sodas that will be coming out, so I'll be trying a lot of different ones. I finally found my first one. I found this one at Wawa. It's the Wild Cherry and Cream Pepsi. So let's see what this tastes like. I'm assuming it'll probably just taste like wild cherry. Get a little bit of the vanilla smell from there. Actually, not too bad. It's a good even keel mix between cream soda and cherry soda. Decent. I'd get 12-pack of that. Now, the one I'm really looking forward to is Coke's Orange and Cream one, which I really can't wait to get into because I really enjoyed the orange vanilla that they had years ago. And it sounds like it's just going to be a remake of that with a little bit of different flavoring to it, maybe. But an orange vanilla Coke should be really, really good. But yeah, the Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream is basically a good mix of both the Wild Cherry Pepsi and the Vanilla Pepsi. So definitely worth it. Definitely should check it out if you like Pepsi. It's really good. So I can't mess myself. So check. Harry Potter, even though it has not even the first season hasn't even come out yet. And won't be out probably till 2026 at the earliest, has already been renewed for a second season. Makes sense if you're going to try to do every book as a season and you want to get your cast members ensconced into it. But the problem is if the show ends up tanking due to something we'll discuss in a few minutes, it could be problematic. So we'll see what happens. But as of now, Harry Potter has already been renewed for a second season. So you're going to at least 2 seasons of the Harry Potter TV show. So we'll see how that actually turns out. The first 2 books are probably the easiest ones to adapt to anything, really. To be honest, they're short, sweet, and to the point. So, okay. A couple of deaths before we get into the major deaths and the major other stuff that's going on here. Bob Uecker, the Uke, was a Major League Baseball player, and that didn't last too long. He wasn't that good, and he's admitted himself before that he wasn't that good. But he loves the game of baseball, so he ended up being a play-by-play announcer for the Milwaukee Brewers, one of my favorite teams that isn't the Orioles. And he was their play-by-play guy, an announcer guy for 54 years. During that time, he did television commercials. He did a TV show called Mr. Belvedere, which a lot of people know about. And he's most famous for his role as Harry Doyle and the Major League series of movies, basically aping himself because doing what Harry Doyle does, basically what Bob Uecker did for the Milwaukee Brewers, but just the classic lines of just a bit outside. And that picture's so mean, he threw at his own kid at a father-son baseball game or something like that is another good line. He's probably one of the best parts of the Major League saga. Rest in peace, Bob Uecker. Dame Joan Plowright also died this week. Everything I've seen so far has been she's an award-winning widow of Laurence Olivier, but they really didn't go into much detail about what movie she did. And honestly, I've heard of her, but I couldn't tell you what movie she's done. So let's see, what do we got? Anything? She was an Equus. I Love You to Death. Avalon. Oh, she was in Avalon. Okay. Filmed here in Maryland. All right. She was in The Last Action Hero. Scarlet Letter, which is a terrible adaptation of it, but she was in it. 101 Dalmatians. Surviving Picasso. Jane Eyre. Tea with Mussolini. I've heard of that one before. Pyromaniac's A Love Story. Bringing Down the House, which is a Steve Martin movie. Curious George, Spiderwick Chronicles also. So she did some stuff. TV-wise. She was in a movie version of the Diary of Anne Frank. She played Mrs. Frank in 1980. She did a version of Driving Miss Daisy, I guess, on television at some time. Played Daisy. She was in Stalin. I remember Stalin was a good movie. That was in the early 90s also. She was narrator of Scrooge and Marley. She's won lots of Tony Awards. Moby Dick is all over the place. She played in a movie version, a TV version, and a theater version of Moby Dick. So she's really into Moby Dick, I guess. But yeah, Uncle Vanya on theater, Much Ado About Nothing theater. Love's Labor's Lost, The Merchant of Venice. She did a lot of Shakespeare, Taming of the Shrew. The Seagull, that's a big one. That's a good one. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? All right. So yeah, she's been nominated a lot. She won Tony Award for Best Actress Play, Taste of Honey. Won for Best Supporting Actress in Golden Globes for Enchanted April, and also won Best Supporting Actress at the Golden Globes for television for Stalin. Okay, that's something that's pretty interesting. You don't hear every day. So there we go. So decent. So Joan Plowright passed away this week as well. Okay. Now we're 11 minutes in. We're going to start talking about the three big stories that affect me-ish, kind of. Not me personally, but are the big stories this week. First up, we'll do Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman was... I liked his writing style. I read a bunch of his books. Neverwhere is good. Good Omens is fantastic. Really loved his Sandman, the comic book version of it. He wrote some other comics in there as well, and then became a producer on the Sandman TV show on Netflix, which was decent. Really good. And was married to a rock singer for a while. They had kids, stuff like that. And, everything seemed to be okay and running smoothly. The Graveyard Book is really good. Coraline, he's written a bunch of really good stuff and did things like that. Then he sort of disappeared once a woman came out and accused him of sexual sexual abuse, maybe, or harassment or something like that. And so he sort of disappeared, and a lot of people started digging in a little bit to the story and started getting a little, that's interesting. And then The Vulture, which I guess is a magazine over in England or whatever, just released this week a full in-depth story about the depravity that he was involved in, and his now ex-wife was involved with, who pimped him out to a bunch of depressed people as well. So he sexually assaulted, sexually abused, sexually harassed many women, some of whom, as I said, were set up by his wife at the time. And now he is getting blasted all over social media, and people are depressed because they loved his writing. His writing helped them through tough times in their lives, because it was, it's good. It's really good stuff. He wrote a lot of really good books that I really enjoyed, and there's still some that I would like to read. And here we start playing with the first big story. Here is a discussion, and the first big thing is you can still, and this is my hot take or whatever you want to take, you can still like somebody's work even if they are a piece of trash. And we're seeing more and more of that now, where Harry Potter was such a big deal for a lot of people, and I enjoyed the books immensely. I reread them multiple times. It was something my wife and I, when we first got together, sort of bonded over as well. And then the movies came out. The movies were actually very well done for the most part as well. Great casting in that. It's pop culture and stuff like that. But then we learned that J.K. Rowling is a anti-trans, pathetic old lady who chastises and abuses trans people and people who are defending trans people as well. And it becomes very, very disgusting, some of the things that she goes off and says and does. But again, she got that because she's got some racist stuff in her as well. What's been going on, but it still doesn't diminish the fact that the Harry Potter series is one of the best young adult series out there, and is entertaining and is still hugely popular. And you just need to separate the person from the art, which is really, really hard. Another good example my friend Gary will give you is Zachary Levi, I guess, who was in one of his favorite TV shows of all time. I forget the name of what it's called right now. But he came out and was a total degenerate, fuckbag, shithead. And Gary's been having some trouble reconciling. Chuck is the name of the show. Reconciling his loving the show with how terrible of a person Zachary Levi turned out to be. Another good example would be, I just had it too. Hold on. Oh, Joss Whedon. You know about my crush on Sarah Michelle Gellar. You know my love of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I also loved the Avengers. I thought he did a really, really good job of that. He sort of dropped the ball with Avengers Age of Ultron, but it's not a terrible movie. And he's written a bunch of other stuff. He wrote Toy Story and Alien 4 and just a whole bunch of other things as well. And I enjoy them. I like them immensely. But then we learned all about his pathetic abuse of Charisma Carpenter on the set of Buffy and then Angel, and his abuse towards Gal Gadot on the Justice League movie, and the dude who plays Cyborg, who, yes, had a reason to be pissed, but then he just kept bringing it up, and there's not much we can do about that. You know, you have to chill out and relax here after a while. You got your wish, and yet you still keep pounding the doors on that. So, again, you know, it's stuff you need to see in retrospect. Now that you know this stuff about the people, you go back and you look at their writing in a new light now, and you reread it, and you begin to notice things that might have always been there that you did not notice before. But again, you should not hate something if you hate the creator. That's just my 2 cents. I know that people are going to look at me and think I'm crazy that, you know, you cannot justify liking the creator of something and the item that they created because it's basically a part of them, stuff like that. And if you like the fictional aspect of it, which is a part of them, you should, in that case, would be liking the person. And that's not entirely true. You can hate somebody for being a complete sleazy piece of shit or just an awful, awful person, but you can still like their, what's the proper word? What they brought to the table via, you know, their entertainment, stuff like that. It's a slippery slope to go down, but you know, I hope this does not affect the Sandman season 2, because I thought Sandman was a very well done miniseries or season show on Netflix, and season 2 is in the books. And I would love to see season 2 come out again and not have an issue. Good Omens. I haven't watched the Prime stuff. I've heard good things about it. He's connected to that as well, and I still want to watch it because I like the book. And I liked Coraline. But again, now you're sort of stuck with the fact that if you like this stuff, does that mean you are liking the person? Are you liking their belief system? And I don't truly believe that. I think you can justify separating the person from their art, and you can like the art and not the person. But that's just my opinion. And the same thing with some of these companies, like particularly Chick-fil-A for me. I like going to Chick-fil-A. I like to eat Chick-fil-A because they have good food. But I also know that the owners of Chick-fil-A are pieces of shit as well. So how I justify that is that I'm not helping them. I'm helping the people who are working for them who just wanted a job and money to survive. And I know choose better. How they might not have been able to choose better. And I get it doesn't affect me personally. And maybe if I was part of one of these marginalized groups that is affected by this, maybe I have a different perspective of things. But right now, is my being white showing a different side? I'm not that type of person, but I still think you can divide the art or the food from a complete and utter waste of space. I think I can justify that because the art is good, the person may not be. I didn't get much more detail about that because I am slowly fading here. I got a lot to talk about. All right, so number 2. Let's see, 2002. Yeah, I think about 2002. I started working at Diamond Comic Distributors up in Timonium. The owner was Steve Jeppy. He owned comic book stores in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, and early 90s that I frequented before comic book shops became a wide span of everything. And he, one of the minority owners of the Baltimore Orioles, a local guy, made goods, stuff like that. And I was living up in Timonium / Cockeysville at that time. And my wife and I just moved in together. We weren't married yet. We just were living together. We moved into our apartment up in Cockeysville. And my job at Rainforest Cafe was not paying as much to help with the rent. My wife was pretty much covering all the rent with her pay, and I needed to feel like I could be helpful and also to help us get into a position where we could start a family or buy a house and get married for the most part too. So comic books have always been a part of my life, and I always knew that Diamond Comics was there, but I just didn't know exactly. I worked for their warehouse in '93, so I knew all about Diamond Comics. So when I learned that their main headquarters is in Timonium and these big glass buildings, which I see all the time, I was like, let me just go and see if I can get a job as customer service rep there. I did. I got a job working as a customer service rep at Diamond. I was on the West Coast team, which meant my shift was 11 to 8 p.m., which the 3-hour difference is 8 to 4. 8, 9, 10, 8, 7, 8 to 5. I'm sorry, 8 to 5, which would benefit my customers out in the West Coast, even though I was working basically midday to early evening, a second shift for the most part, as it were. Enjoyed working as a customer service rep to an extent. I was getting free comics. I was talking comics with fellow comic book people. We had special guests in, Mark Hamill. Who else do we have in there? There was a few other people. I can't think of who else we might have had in there. Mark Hamill was the big one. We got free comics. We got really good discounts on comic book stuff, which I had. And I got to decorate my cubicle with all kinds of fun stuff. Made some friendships there. Me and this guy, Cliff, he would always email me, want some Chinese. And I was like, yep. So we would go and get Chinese in the middle of the day and eat Chinese at our desk because we were stuck in our cubicles on the phone. And just some good people, and that I work. Some of my customers were good, and then there were some that were bad. And then some of the stuff we had to do, we had to do sales stuff, even though there were sales staff. They wanted us to do sales stuff, which I didn't like. And customer service rep is the ones that get their asses ripped into when something doesn't go right for somebody. So we were getting yelled at and called names and brought down all the time and insulted. Wednesday and Thursday was always the hardest days because that's new comic book day, and people screaming and yelling for damages and shortages. With our queue, we had to go in there. It was getting up to like 16, 17 minutes, people on hold, waiting to cover stuff. It was stressful, and there was no windows, no ventilation. So I had to get up periodically because I couldn't just sit at my desk. I had to get up and I had to walk around a little bit. Eventually got a job as I can't remember what my job actually was. My job title was brand manager, Diamond Comics. So I enjoyed it. It was close to home. And then we got our house in Reisterstown. Here we are, where we are, 2004. So the commute got to be a little bit harder. I used to be able to come home for lunch. My wife would be getting in from her work because she would go in early in the morning. And I loved our little apartment with 4 kids. It was just the 2 of us. It was really cool. And I loved the location. And I loved just living that life. But, life moves on, and I enjoy that life. So eventually I left Diamond in 2006. Still had friends with that. Still read comics. Had met Steve Jeppy a bunch of times and stuff like that. So one of my former co-workers who moved on a little bit before I did, way back in the early part of the 21st century, now owns her own knitting company out in somewhere Illinois or Indiana or something like that. She posted something on Facebook, since I'm still friends with her, about Diamond Comics, the place I used to work with, having to file for bankruptcy, which is a big deal because at one point, and one of the reasons why people were yelling and screaming at us all the time is because Diamond was the only job in town, the only business in town that dealt with distribution of comic books. So we were a monopoly, and I don't know, I'm fine with that. Again, if you want to compete, but if you can't handle it, we'll take it over. Anyway, but that's what pissed off a lot of people, was that we were a monopoly. There was no other option. But then when COVID hit, DC decided to take the chance now, because Diamond shut down as everything else was shut down, but they were still doing comics and they still wanted to do comics. So they found another distributor who was willing to distribute their stuff to comic book stores, even during lockdowns, which is still kind of hinky to me, and they moved it to Tuesdays. So once Diamond lost DC, that was really about it. And then after lockdowns came up, it seemed DC had some troubles early on, but once the distributor had figured out how to do stuff, they didn't have as many problems as they had before. Then Marvel started seeing that and said, hey, we can do this on our own also. They had tried to done it on their own in the late 90s, and it didn't work out for them very well, and they had to come crawling back to Diamond. So they tried it again, and that was successful. So when you lose both Marvel and DC as your main, being the main distributor of those two, things are going to start falling apart, because now you're the indie one. But then the indie people are like, you know what? I'm not liking this business. They got a better deal. We could probably get a better deal. So they split off. So Diamond's bit by bit, piece by piece, was getting broken up. And now it's gotten to the point where it was just too rough, too much going on. They have too much stuff happening. They have all these different divisions: Diamond Select Books, Diamond Select Toys, Hakes Auctions. They got all this stuff, and they've had to liquidate all them or try to sell it. Diamond UK was just sold to somebody over in the UK, and it's going to cause issues for some of the smaller independent publishers who can't afford to go out on their own, and stuck with Diamond because they were, a tried and true company that knew what they were doing, and now they're kind of stuck. So I didn't dislike my time at Diamond. I had a lot of stress, which really got to me, and it was at that point right around the time where I became a father for the first time. And I had quit before my daughter was born. So I had never worked at Diamond when my kids were around, but still friends with people. And it was a possibility that I might go back to that when I lost my job before I found my Hanover one in 2007, that I might go back to Diamond was always a possibility because I left on good terms. But in the end, it didn't work out. But the fact that it's filing for bankruptcy is kind of tough. Doesn't really affect me too much because I don't read comics as much anymore. And my local comic book store, they've already adjusted to the way things are now. And they did not really have much like for Diamond itself. They liked some of the people there, but they didn't like the monopoly aspect of it, I guess, like a lot of companies didn't. So it's not really a problem for them. Problem is for Steve Jeppy and all the employees of Diamond right now. So here's hoping that they can reorganize under Chapter 11, sell some stuff that might have been bringing them down, get some collateral in there, money in there, and try to figure out what they're going to do next, and hopefully not die off completely, because they've been around since 1980, I think, which is a long ass time, 45 years. So good luck to them, my former employee. So here we are, just over a half hour into my show. And the worst thing about this week for me personally dropped yesterday. Director David Lynch passed away at the age of 78. David Lynch, in his career, made 10 movies and also produced and wrote and directed episodes of his own TV show, Twin Peaks, which lasted 3 seasons. He also did a little-known show, also for ABC, a half-hour comedy show, which was very much David Lynchian, called On the Air, that only lasted about 5 or 6 episodes. They ended up doing 12 in general. I think when they released it on DVD, they released the unreleased ones as well. Worked with a lot of famous people. But the big thing about David was he was an artistic filmmaker. He was a filmmaker that really could care less about story and more along the lines of how watching a movie makes you feel, because his movies later on, I guess, in his career just got into really bizarre aspects of it. David Lynch was one of my favorite directors. When I was in college and I was contemplating becoming a filmmaker, David Lynch was a big reason why. His use of camera shots and angles and dolly shots and color and sound and stuff like that really inspired me and made his movies and shows visually stunning and easy to watch, despite the fact that they are bizarre little things and the stories don't make a lot of sense, and there's supernatural aspects and weird leaps in logic and stuff that just doesn't make a lot of sense. But it became an iconic thing. If you said something was Lynchian, everybody knew exactly what we're talking about. It was kind of this sort of bizarre, dreamlike sort of quality. One of his movies, Wild at Heart, was a loose remake of The Wizard of Oz, but it had some of the most bizarre sequences, including Willem Dafoe getting his head blown off while he's chasing the good guys in a convertible. I thought I had more to say about David Lynch, and I'm not the only one who's felt this way about David. Going on to all my social media, particularly the Threads and Blue Sky and Instagram and Facebook, they all have tributes to David Lynch. I haven't been on X because I could give a rat's ass about X now, which is not even X, it's Twitter. which was, I don't even call it Twitter anymore because Twitter doesn't exist anymore. This shitty apocalyptic social media app called X does. But everyone has stories about David Lynch. Everyone has, bits and pieces about him. He was a genuinely kind person, very much into meditation, pretty damn good writer, could be very flowery with some of the stuff, really good artist. When it came to filmmaking, he made artistic films that seemed dreamlike qualities. He did not shy away from violence and nudity or the baser instincts of people. Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which is a prequel/sequel to his TV show Twin Peaks, without the constraints of ABC and network television. He was able to make a hard R film about the last 7 days of Laura Palmer's life, which included her, showing her tits multiple times, fucking different dudes, getting raped by her father in the guise of a spirit named Bob, getting screamed at, threatened, doing drugs, interacting with bizarre, strange people, and having to deal with a love triangle and just some really whacked out shit. And then her final night is just absolutely terrifying, with her getting violently assaulted and by her own father, and then eventually beaten to death, only to release all that pain and anguish in the lovely, beautiful final last scene of the movie, where Laura's in the Black Lodge with Cooper, who's been trapped in there since the end of Twin Peaks season 2, as her angel comes to take her spirit to heaven and take her away from all this pain and suffering, and just the pure relief and happiness and the sadness of a life cut short, but the happiness of knowing that she will be without pain and torment for her life, gives itself into tears and laughter at the same time, with the wonderful Angelo Badalamenti's score, who passed away a couple of years ago, building up to a crescendo. Absolutely gorgeous scenes, stuff like that. Just very well shot sequences, good dialogue, and bizarre stuff out of left field. Also, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, when you first saw it, when David Lynch himself, who did some acting on the side, played Gordon Cole, head of the FBI bureau, came out to talk to 2 new FBI agents and had to give a lot of information quickly, but didn't want to just read it. They did something clever by dressing up a woman and doing different clues on her so that the FBI agent would understand the scenario he was getting himself into. Another brilliant sequence like that. Before Denis Villeneuve, David Lynch was tasked with adapting Dune into movie format. And I think I have the oral history of it, which I think I have to read in his honor starting tomorrow. Maybe not tomorrow because I got a lot going on, but maybe tomorrow because I don't have to leave till like 3 o'clock. So I got the morning and afternoon. He had a wide-ranging belief about what he wanted to do with Dune. And the movie production company tied his hands and handcuffed him, and he had to condense Dune into 1 2-hour movie, whereas Denis Villeneuve was able to spread it out over 2 films. It was the only big budget film he ever did, and it flopped horribly and made him not want to do it again. But it's a decent first try on Dune. Maybe some of the casting is off, but you've got Kyle MacLachlan, you've got Sean Young, you've got Patrick Stewart, you've got Sting, you've got some other Twin Peaks alum. Before they were Twin Peaks alum, they worked with him on these films, and Kyle MacLachlan, was kind of like his muse. I mean, Kyle MacLachlan worked in 1, 2, 3 of his movies, and then the whole TV show about Twin Peaks. But you could also make the case that Harry Dean Stanton was his muse as well, because he was in a number of his stuff as well. But Dune he tried, and when he was handcuffed by the studio, he did the best he could. Everybody says how terrible it is compared to the Dane Villeneuve stuff, but he was able to let it breathe a little bit. And now David Lynch's Dune is now sort of a pop culture sort of cult classic now. The only thing I really remember about it is not much, because when I saw it for the first time, it was 1994, and I was dating this girl. It's like my first real serious girlfriend. We were invited to a party at my friends Pat and Eric's house. Same guys who helped me make my squirrel movie. Our squirrel movie, I should say. And they were going to get high and watch Dune. I didn't want to get high. I don't think my girlfriend got high at the time. We did drink some alcohol, I think, probably, but we didn't get high, and they wanted to watch Dune. So they had it on, but my girlfriend and I were at that time in that phase where we were sort of more into each other than the movie. And I remember my friend Glenn said that I looked like Kyle MacLachlan's character, Wadib, I think was what he used to call me, and that my girlfriend looked like Sean Young's character. So he would refer back to that all the time, because he was there also watching the movie with us, and we were all sort of friends. So that's my real big remembrance of that. So I think I need to read that book now about that. The Elephant Man is an interesting aspect. It was a serious Oscar contender, was nominated for a ton of Academy Awards. He didn't win any, but he should have gotten some recognition for his work. Black and white, and made a really brilliant film out of something that couldn't get done. But the most interesting thing about that was who was the one who championed him. Mel Brooks. Yes, the Mel Brooks, The Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, Spaceballs, Dracula Dead and Loving It, Robin Hood Men in Tights director, who wanted to get into a little bit more serious stuff in the early 80s, and handpicked David Lynch to be his director for The Elephant Man that he was producing, Mel Brooks was producing. And the studio didn't like the idea of Lynch, who at that time was still finally new. He hadn't been given Dune yet. He had just done Eraserhead. So people were kind of taken aback by Mel Brooks' suggestion of him. It was like, don't you want like a more, appropriate director at that time, like early 80s? I couldn't give you like a Coppola or Scorsese or something like that. And Mel, to his, said, this is the guy. And he threatened to walk and take the money away, and they wouldn't have their big Oscar bait movie. And they said, fine. And I think in the end, they were happy with it. It didn't quite make a lot of money, because, hey, it's not really David's fault, because it's a character, it's someone in history that no one really knew much about and really could care less about, to be honest. But it did get some nominations, and it did put David on the map, and it put him in to get to Dune. And even George Lucas at one point approached him about doing Return of the Jedi, which would have been absolutely insane. But it was, wasn't David's cup of tea. And then after the failure of Dune, in the eyes of the studio, David was able to do something a little bit smaller and something that's been itching in the back of his head for a while, and he created Blue Velvet, which was a big success. Maybe not big, but it was successful enough that it got people's attention to it, and is now considered a classic with some great performances by Dean Stockwell, Tom McLaughlin again, Isabella Rossellini, Laura Dern. And I can see the guy's face, but he was the villain in Speed and Waterworld and was in True Romance. I can't think of him right now. But they did a pretty decent film with that. And then that led, I think, into Twin Peaks. And then Wild at Heart in there with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern again. And like a version of The Wizard of Oz. And then Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which I already talked about a little bit. And then Lost Highway, which is one of my favorites, which is absolutely crazy, surreal film with Bill Pullman and Patricia Arquette and Robert Blake before he went crazy and killed his girlfriend. And it's still kind of one of my favorite movies. It is, again, the beginning of where David sort of started going off the rails a little bit, metaphorically and artistically. And Lost Highway is such a bizarre movie that it's hard to quantify it because a lot happens. And again, nudity, sex, violence, just out of nowhere. So I enjoyed Lost Highway. I know a lot of people didn't, but I thought it has some of the great Angelo Badalamenti music, some great performances in it as well. And then he did a small little film for Disney, which again got some Oscar cred. Not a lot, but got some. His first ever G-rated movie, which was a complete change of scenery for him, and probably his most straightforward film called A Straight Story, which I just realized I made that sort of connection to it, which is just a wonderful film. It's on Disney Plus right now. If you haven't had a chance to see it, I haven't watched it in a few years. I need to check it out again. So definitely worth a watch for that. And then he jumped into Mulholland Drive, which was really what got him back into things. A lot of Oscar-nominated film, Oscar nominations. I don't think it won anything again, but it got nominated a lot. A lot of people are saying it is one of the best movies of the 21st century. And I guess if you did from this, 25 years into the 21st century, if you made a list of like the top 25 movies of the 21st century, a lot of people would put Mulholland Drive in there. Another bizarre sort of Lost Highway-esque sort of film, which sort of meanders and loses its way a little bit, but is definitely worth it, visually, stunningly, and really getting into more of the artistic, dreamlike quality of what David Lynch's stuff was. And he ends his career directing with Inland Empire, which I really didn't see, but I've heard some really bizarre things about. A weird 3-hour sort of film that just sort of really loses itself. And then David did Twin Peaks: The Return, 18 episodes of Twin Peaks, which really wasn't Twin Peaks. It had aspects of it, but again, without the constraints of network television, he is able to sex, nudity, violence, more crazy stuff. But no, the amount of actors who wanted to work with him was stunning. But just the weird story arc, stuff like that, put me off a little bit, though it is enjoyable. But I much rather would like more of a Twin Peaks, sort of in Twin Peaks, and sort of ends in a weird, sort of bizarre way. But again, that's not what David did. David never did movies where you were supposed to, or shows that you were supposed to try to figure out and understand what was going on. It was all artistic. It was all dream imagery. It was all your own opinion, what you believe, what you think happened, so on and so forth. So, and then his last performance as an actor, he did a short. He did a short on Netflix, but he did the role of Glenn Ford, director in Spielberg's autobiographical film The Fabelmans. And Spielberg asked him directly as a favor, and it took a while to get him to do it, but he did do it, and it's his last performance that he ever did. He got sick a few years ago. COVID really did a number on him. He smoked a lot, drank a lot of Coke, ate a lot of sweets. But, he was genuinely a wonderful human being, good person in general, and he will be missed. I thought I'd have more to say about him, but again, it's late on a Saturday, and I still got a lot more to do. And but yeah, I'm going to be all over it. A lot of people are just really talking about it on the various social medias around here, and I am here for it. Fantastic. Should be drinking a Coke instead of Pepsi, but we don't have orange cream Coke yet. All right, so now we got almost 3 pages of pop culture stuff. So let's breeze through this. We should get done in about 40 minutes, which puts us at about 12:20, 12:25. So let's see how good we are at that. So here we go. Godzilla and King Kong are now in Fortnite. You can buy a King Kong skin and a Mechagodzilla skin and play them as in regular Fortnite. But you can get the Godzilla skin by doing different tasks and stuff like that to figure some stuff out. But they will also be actual Godzillas and Kongs will be dropped on the island when you get in there and will be destroying everything. And you can go and attack him. And if you beat him or do the most damage to him, you will get a medallion, which will let you turn into a Godzilla or a Kong and be that size and wreck stuff. So sort of similar to the Doctor Doom thing that happened in the Marvel season of Fortnite, just recently happened. I haven't gotten to that point yet, so I'm going to check that probably tomorrow morning, probably. Speaking of that, the Nintendo Switch 2 is set to debut later this year. It's been rumored that was going to happen, but it will be coming up sooner than later, but no date has been given just yet. A lot of people are skeptical about it. They think that it's not really, they didn't really do anything different to it. But again, you really haven't been given all the information yet about it yet. So, keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens. But Nintendo Switch 2 will be out sometime in 2025. A lot of people thought it'd be earlier, like May, like April, May. But now it seems more and more likely it's probably going to be where it should be around the holiday season. So, speaking of that, a big rumor went through is that, it should be about time that they should be, with all this advent of all these video games and stuff like that, that a Buffy video game for Buffy the Vampire Slayer should be available for people now. And should be created, and there's a lot you can do with it, they figured. So we'll stay tuned with that, see if that actually is going to be happening. Joel McHale has been cast as Sydney's husband in Scream 7, which is upsetting a lot of people. They wanted to bring back Patrick Dempsey, but that's not the case. So now we have Joel McHale. Jasmine Sunny Bram returns as Missy Meeks Martin in Scream 7. She was in the previous Scream 6 and maybe Scream 5, so she's been cast in that as well. So good on that. I know I'll say a shower. That's what it is. The Twilight Saga is getting a Lego set. They just started showing the first looks of it and did a trailer for it. So it's pretty cool. You Season 5 trailer is set to debut on Netflix on April 24th, adding to the year of streaming. A lot of people like You. It's the final season of it, so it'll be set to debut in April. The divisionals, I talked about this earlier, the divisionals in the NFL have been set. Saturday's games are the Houston Texans, who surprised the Los Angeles Chargers, and will be going to Kansas City to take on the number 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs at 4:30 p.m. on Saturday. The Chiefs starters have not played in 3 weeks. Since Christmas was the last time they played. So we'll see if that's going to cause them any issues. The Commanders, who also surprised the Buccaneers in their playoff game, are moving on to the next round and will be playing the number 1 seed Detroit Lions in Detroit at 8 p.m. on Saturday. On Sunday, the Rams will be taking on the Eagles at 8 p.m. I'm sorry, not 8 p.m. on 3 p.m. on Sunday. And my Baltimore Ravens will be taking on the Buffalo Bills Sunday at 6:30 p.m. in Buffalo. So that's your divisional lineup. Speaking of the Ravens, Zay Flowers, who hurt himself in the last game of the season, sat out for the first round of the playoffs, was seen at practice on Friday, testing stuff out. He very well may be able to play on Sunday. I think if he does end up playing, it will be very limited because he is still suffering from a sprained MCL, and you don't want that to go from sprained to torn. So we'll see that happens. The First Aid benefit concert is set to help raise money for the LA fire destruction. The fires are still going, but a lot of them are contained, and there's still a couple of small ones that keep popping up. But the winds have started to die down a little bit, so the fire should all be contained here real soon. But the damage has been done, billions of dollars worth of damage. So First Aid is a benefit concert that's trying to raise money to help first responders and also people who are going to need to rebuild their lives. See if I can read all the handwriting I had here. We've got Green Day, Billie Eilish, Lady Gaga, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Stevie Nicks, Sting, Rod Stewart, Gwen Stefani, Dave Matthews, John Mayer, Pink, Joni Mitchell, Jelly Roll. I can't read some of the other writing, but it's a good slot of musicians that come in there. So good on that. Jessica Henwich and Ashley Zuderman are joining the Silo Season 3 as regulars. Thandiwe Newton and Steve Zahn have joined the cast of Anaconda, the Paul Rudd, Jack Black meta remake of the Jennifer Lopez movie. We also have Selton Miller and Ione Skye have also joined Anaconda as well. So their cast is starting to get fleshed out there a little bit, which is good. Ione Skye's name I haven't heard in a million years, so that's crazy. Sebastian Stan has signed on for another comic book role. This time he will be producing and starring in an adaptation of Ed Brubaker's hard-boiled comic Reckless. Said to be similar to Jack Reacher, sort of thing. He doesn't have superpowers. He's just a guy going around to try and save people. A lot of people don't remember this, but Ayala was a singer / actress who was huge in the late 90s, who died, I believe. Was she killed or was it a plane crash? I think she was killed. Yeah, the other one was someone else. So she died in a plane crash. And this week would have been her 46th birthday. So Barbie decided to release an Ayala. I'm terrible. Ayala doll on her 46th birthday, and it's sold out. Ayala. I'm terrible. But that's pretty good. Speaking of Barbie, Greta Gerwig, who directed Barbie, her next film is a Chronicles of Narnia adaptation for Netflix. And Greta Gerwig was trying to push to get an IMAX release of the Narnia movie before it went to Netflix. Netflix, however, was just like, no, we don't want to do that. But cooler heads prevailed, and Netflix has acquiesced, and Greta Gerwig's Narnia adaptation will be going to IMAX for 2 weeks before it drops on Netflix. Teacup was canceled after one season. I guess not too surprising. Win or Lose trailer, Pixar's first original TV series, set to debut on February 19th on Disney+. I watched the trailer, and I'm still kind of confused about what's going on. It's kind of a mix of Inside Out, but instead of it being in someone's mind, they manifest themselves on the exterior of somebody, and it follows 8 different people and the different things that they're going through and some different art styles here and there. It's a unique idea, but it still kind of left me a little about stuff. The Ballad of Wallace Island trailer, set to debut March 28th. It's sort of an indie UK sort of film about a former, like a musician who comes back to his hometown and ends up staying with an obsessive sort of fan who brings back his old partner, which is his old girlfriend who's now married. And then they sort of get back into playing music again. And he thinks maybe there's a chance for them to get back together romantically as well. Looks like an interesting, what you expect from an independent sort of English film. So doesn't really seem all interesting to me, but you might like it. It's called The Ballad of Wallace Island. Dave Krumholtz and Emily Beecham have been cast as Supergirl's parents. We don't know if it's going to be her Kryptonian parents or her Earth parents, but they have been cast. They will be in the new Supergirl movie, which is currently filming right now for James Gunn's DCU, set to debut sometime next year. Speaking of Superman, Dan Slott, comic book writer most known for Spider-Man, also did a good run on Silver Surfer there for a while, did a good run on She-Hulk, which made her a lot like the She-Hulk we saw in the MCU show, again proving that the haters have never read comic books. And it's been kind of quiet lately. Well, he has signed on and jumped ship from Marvel to DC. He will be writing a new Superman comic. I think it's called Superman, Man of the Universe or something like that. And he'll be writing it, and Raphael Albuquerque will be the artist on it. And so Dan Slott is also one of the world's biggest Doctor Who fans, but that is neither here nor there. But regardless, he's starting to work on it. I think it comes out in May. I think they'll have the preview of it in the Free Comic Book Day comic at the beginning of May, and the actual comic itself comes out the end of May. May have tomorrow, maybe what it's called. But Dan Slott has teased what the storyline's about, and it's an interesting one. What do they call it? An annihilation event, apocalyptic event, meteor shower of kryptonite, I guess, from Krypton is set to hit the Earth with kryptonite shards spread all over the world. So now villains think that this is going to be the great equalizer in their battle against Superman. So they're going to be trying their best to recover as much of these kryptonite crystals as they can, which will help kill and stop Superman so they can keep doing business. So it seems like an interesting idea. So we'll see if that continues going on that way. Shout Studios has acquired the Golden Princess Library, which is 156 Hong Kong cinema films that have not been seen in the United States for a really long time. It's all of John Woo's Asian films, including Hard Boiled. You also get some Ringo Llama and Tony Ching and a whole bunch of hugely popular Chinese and Korean action films that just people have seen here or there, but there have been no physical copies available and not been released in theaters, stuff like that. But Shout Studios has the rights now. They're going to be probably re-releasing them all in 4K. 156 of these movies with some of the greatest action directors of the time. It's a big deal. The Until Dawn trailer. Can't read that. The Until Dawn trailer actually looks pretty interesting. It's a horror film based on the video game. It's about a group of typical teenagers, whatever, that go to this like house in the woods or whatever, and end up getting stalked and killed by a psychopathic mass maniac. So they think they're dead. But then, a la Groundhog Day, they're in a time loop and they are brought back to life. It's still nighttime and they still get ready to die, or so someone's going to start ready to kill them. So they think they're going to die again from this stalker, sociopath. But instead, it turns out to be a different type of horror that comes out from this time. This time it's like an old, decrepit, wretched lady, witch lady sort of, who's trying to torture them and stuff like that. They all die again, and then they're caught in the groundhog loop. It goes back to the beginning of the time, and they face off against a different horror icon or whatever. In this case, like giant worms or whatever. So it's going to keep replaying itself till they survive through dawn, and they all survive. So it's an interesting, intriguing idea. It's a horror film, like Groundhog Day, but at the same time, they're not reliving the day over and over again. They're reliving the night over and over again, but it's different each time. Whereas it'd be like if Groundhog Day, if Bill Murray hadn't changed stuff, if every time he redid Groundhog Day, something changed. That was sort of a big deal because, being killed by a psychopath and Until Dawn makes a lot of sense. So that's sort of like the idea that they're going for, is like, what if, Groundhog Day happened, but something changed, something major changed all the time. And you had to redo stuff and it would change again and again. Oh, The Monkey. That's what that is. The Monkey trailer came out this week also. Adaptation of the Stephen King short story by the guy who brought you Long Legs. It's set to come out February 21st. And it's very gory, very brutal, and looks okay, but just doesn't seem my piece of cake. Until Dawn, real quick, is also due out April 25th. Some NFL news. The Dolphins have been tasked to host the first ever Madrid, Spain game. So they'll be playing in Madrid next year. The Ravens do play the Dolphins away, I think, so we could possibly be playing them in Madrid. Let me see if we're playing them away. Yep, we're playing the Dolphins away. So the Browns, we're playing the Browns are away. They have a game in England. The Dolphins are away. They have a game in Madrid, Spain now. So there's potential we could end up going to overseas again next year. But we'll see. So that's good for them, I guess. A little bit closer to home, the World Trade Center. Yes, we have World Trade Center also right downtown. Used to have an observation deck that I used to go to a lot when I was younger, and took my kids there a couple times as well. They are closing down the observation deck, which sucks. Which just continuing the death of the Inner Harbor. It was really cool because you could see for really far away around Baltimore and even Baltimore County a little bit. It was kind of neat. A MILF porn legend, Rochelle Ryan, is offering her services to the first responders of the LA fires. I guess she's offering herself to them as like, if you're a first responder, thank you so much, and to show my gratitude, you can fuck me. I guess I'm assuming that's what it is. The PGA Award nominations came out, which reminds me the Academy Awards nominations have been moved to the 23rd, I believe. I know I have that story somewhere around here, but I think I'll find it here. I might have written it down, though. Yes, the Academy Award nominations have been pushed, I think, to next Thursday, the 23rd. So we'll know more about that for now. But for now, the PGA Awards nominations are a pretty good idea of who is going to be nominated for Best Picture, because they tend to be done by the same people. So let's see. Just give us a list here. All right, that's not going to help any. That's the television nominees. Gerald Zanuck Award for Outstanding Producer of Theatrical Motion Pictures. The nominees are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, A Real Pain, September 5th, The Substance, and Wicked. Award for Outstanding Producer of Animated Theatrical Motion Pictures, Flow, Inside Out 2, Moana 2, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, The Wild Robot. Again, these are pretty much going to be what you're going to see at the Academy Awards, probably. The Norman Felton Award for Outstanding Producer of Episodic Television Drama, Bad Sisters, The Diplomat, Fallout, Shogun, Slow Horses. Danny Thomas Award for Outstanding Producer of Episodic Television Comedy, Abbott Elementary, The Bear, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Hacks, Only Murders in the Buildings. David L. Walper Award for Outstanding Producer of Limited Anthology Series Television, Baby Reindeer, Feud, Capote versus the Swans, The Penguin, Ripley, True Detective, Night Country. Award for Outstanding Producer of Televised or Stream Motion Pictures, Carry On, The Greatest Night in Pop, The Killer, Rebel Ridge, Unfrosted. Oh, really? Award for Outstanding Producer of Nonfiction Television, 30 for 30, Conan O'Brien Must Go, The Jinx Part 2. Steve Martin, a documentary in 2 pieces, Welcome to Wrexham. Award for Outstanding Producer of Live Entertainment, Variety, Sketch, Stand-Up, and Talk Television, Ali Wong, Single Lady, The Daily Show, last week with John Oliver, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Saturday Night Live. Award for Outstanding Producer of Game and Competition Television, The Amazing Race, RuPaul's Drag Race, Top Chef, The Traders, The Voice. The rest are just some other stuff. Award for Outstanding Producer of Documentary Motion Pictures, Gaucho, Meta High, Mountain Queen, Porcelain War, Superman, The Christopher Reeve Story, We Will Dance Again. The Award for Outstanding Children's Program, Avatar: Last Airbender, Fraggle Rock, Back to the Rock, Percy Jackson: The Olympian, Sesame Street, SpongeBob SquarePants. Award for Outstanding Short Form Program, The Crown, Hacks, The Penguin, Real Time, Shogun. Those are all like behind the scenes stuff. The award for Outstanding Sports Program, Formula One, Drive to Survive, Hard Knocks, All Season with the New York Giants, Messi's World Cup, Simone Biles Rising, Triumph, Jesse Owens in the Berlin Olympics. The PGA Innovation Award, Critters, Emperor, Impulse, Playing with Reality, Orbital, The Pirate Queen of Lucy Liu, What If, an Immersive Story. So that's your Producers Guild Award nominations. Some good stuff there. So well worth it. Oh, it might be a lot later than that. Progresso's Soup Drops seems sort of similar to like the hot chocolate bombs. It's their drops, I guess you put them in their little balls of soup that you put in a bowl, and I guess when you put them in the microwave or on the stovetop or whatever, it melts them down and it turns into soup, I guess. Kind of weird, to be honest. So that's it. Anniversary, Sex Education debuted 6 years ago this week. The January Man debuted 36 years ago this week. And another big death was Janat Zurich, director. You might not have ever heard of him, but I guarantee you have heard of the movies that he has directed. Let's see. Not sure. Okay, he's a French producer. He directed Jaws 2, Somewhere in Time, Supergirl, Santa Claus the movie are his big ones. And he directed multiple episodes of a lot of different TV shows. He directed 4 episodes of Castle, 2 of Scandal, 7 of Fringe, 7 of Grey's Anatomy, 1 episode of Numbers, 10 episodes of Bones, 6 episodes of Heroes, 2 Boston Legal, 14 episodes of Smallville, 5 episodes of Ally McBeal, 18 episodes of The Practice, 19 episodes of Jag, 19 episodes of Night Gallery, 13 episodes of Kojak. So he did a lot of stuff. But Jaws 2, Supergirl, Santa Claus the movie, Somewhere in Time. These are some of the other movies that he did. So rest in peace. Krispy Kreme continues to do crazy stuff. They now have Pop-Tart donuts, which are donuts based on Pop-Tarts that have Pop-Tarts on them. Believe it or not, the Giant I was at nearby me actually had a box of them for sale as well. Kraven the Hunter is set to debut on March 4th on a DVD and Blu-ray. I talked about one porn star already. Another porn star Bonnie Blue, has broken the world record by sleeping with 1,057 men in 12 hours. Let's be honest, wasn't really sleeping with them. They like double pumped and then left, sort of thing. But she does own the world record now for 1,057 men slept with in 1 hour. Stephen King has written a lot of stuff by himself, and he's collaborated with people. One of the people he collaborated with was thriller writer Peter Straub, who passed away a couple of years ago. They wrote The Talisman and Bleak House, which is a sequel to Talisman. Talisman has been picked up by the the Duffer Brothers, who created Stranger Things, to be made into a mini series or a series on Netflix later on, their next one. Stephen King dropped this week that Peter Straub, before he passed away, had left an idea for a potential third Talisman, and Stephen King has decided now is the time to work on it as an honor to Peter Straub. So Talisman 3 is being written as we speak right now by Stephen King. Jake Busey and Christina Kirk are fending off feral cats in the B movie Catnip, which is a great idea for a movie, by the way. The moon and Mars had an occultation this week. The full wolf moon, which is the first full moon of the year, was really big. Mars was here. It's at opposition with us, which means it's closest to us. And as they move through the night sky, the moon passed in front of Mars, and that occurred on Monday. One Piece Season 2, which should be getting close to finishing up filming, has cast Sophia Ann Caruso, Mark Renwill, and Antoine David Juilliard, or Jonathan, in roles that if you read the anime or the manga, you would know who they were, but I don't. So, Apple Cider Vinegar, an Australian drama, is set to drop on Netflix sometime in February. No date yet, but it will be coming. Farron Tahir, who was in the first Iron Man movie, played the guy that everybody thought was going to be the Mandarin, because he was the terrorist leader who was holding Tony hostage in the first half of Iron Man, will be returning to the Marvel MCU after 17 years. He will be showing up in the Vision Quest series, which is set to start filming here really soon. I'm sure he's going to be reprising his role, but don't know how that's going to connect to Vision. Again, this is pretty good. The wild cherries and cream, they're decent. So there we go. We'll find out. The Outlaws, a show I did not know anything about, but had 2 seasons on Prime that did pretty good because they got a 3rd season set debut May 31st. The guy who posted it, Carl Kesel, is a comic book inker, and he seemed to enjoy the first 2 seasons. A British comedy drama sort of thing. So, Leighton Measer is set to star in a new CW show called Good Cop, Bad Cop with Clancy Brown. Leighton Measer. Barry Levinson's back, baby. Barry Levinson, one of the greatest directors of the 80s and early 90s, and then sort of disappeared for a while, is back. He is directing a new film with Robert De Niro called The Alto Kings, where De Niro plays 2 distinct roles based on a true story of 2 mafia guys. One is going to try to take down the New York Mafia, and De Niro plays both the roles, and it's directed by Barry Levinson. So welcome back, you guys. The Woman in the Yard is another Blumhouse film, horror film, which is kind of creepy about a woman dressed in black that just appears in this young family's yard and just stands there until one point where she says now is time and shows her bloody hands. So not sure what's going to happen with that, but it's Blumhouse, so it's a horror film. George R.R. Martin says he's not going to write any more Game of Thrones. I don't think he's even going to finish up the Winds of War. So sorry about that, Game of Thrones people. You're not going to see how that ends. But the fact that it's been like 10 years, 20 years since the last novel, I understand it. The Daredevil Born Again trailer, full trailer, debuted this week. It is very brutal, very violent. Has that Netflix Daredevil vibe. So you guys who enjoyed that series should enjoy this one real quick. We'll see. I watched the first couple episodes of the first season, but really didn't get caught up on it too much. So maybe I should do that here soon. Scientists have discovered a bigger, more venomous spider species. That's just what we really want to hear. De Niro's all over the place. He's also in his first TV series for Netflix, set to debut February 20th. We get our first real quick look at 0 Day. This basically has De Niro in this fancy house trying to get into his safe, but can't remember his combination. Meanwhile, people are hammering on the door of his house trying to get him in, get in. Sounds like police officers who are getting ready to arrest him or whatever. So he's got to look around to try to figure out, what if there's a clue about what is in the safe and what the safe combination is. And so that's basically about it. And then the door smashes open and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. 0 Day has a great cast and it's intriguing, basically sort of conspiracy theory sort of stuff. So we'll see how that turns out. But, that's pretty good for that too. Wheel of Time Season 3 is set to debut in March of 2025. I have stopped watching that, but my wife still watches it. Wheel of Time is one of her favorite literary series, so she will be happy to hear that. Netflix is also set to be doing a documentary about my Baltimore Orioles, which I think is a really cool idea. Can't wait to see that, talking about their ups and downs that they've sustained over the years. So that'll be good to see that. The beginning of the century, there was a show called Spartacus, which was, I believe, an import from another country, but had John Hannah from the Mummy movies and had the actress, I can't think of her name right now, who played Xena, warrior princess, starring in it. The big difference was basically about Spartacus. It was basically about slaves who were gladiators and stuff like that, in that time of gladiators and excess and Roman stuff and stuff like that. And I said I believe it's an import because there was a lot of full frontal nudity by both men and women, a lot of almost pornographic sex in it as well, and also violent gladiatorial battles. It was a huge hit. Only problem is it only lasted 2 seasons because the main actor who played Spartacus unfortunately contracted a vicious cancer and passed away. So instead of continuing on without him, they just canceled the show and moved on. It was on what do you call that? Syndication. So you really didn't have the rules of regular television on there. It was on, I think, Stars is the one who I think syndicated it through there. Anyway, fast forward to now, they have finally decided they're going to make a sequel set to debut in the fall 2025, bringing back some of the same characters from the original one from 20 some years ago. We got our first trailer of it. There's a couple more sequences of sex and nudity. You don't really see the nudity since it's the trailer, but you can definitely see the sex and see that it looks like it's going to pick up where it left off here 20 some years later. So good. More football news. The Indianapolis Colts are set to play the first NFL game ever in Berlin. So that's a pretty big deal. So that's pretty cool. I wish we were going to be playing in that one, but we're not. So, oh well. I did not know this. John Williams, the world's greatest movie conductor, the guy who created the Star Wars, Harry Potter, Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Superman, Home Alone themes, as well as a whole bunch of other ones. His son is the lead singer of the band Toto, which I did not know. But there we go. Now I do. And now you know. And finally, TikTok is set to shut down on Sunday. There's all kinds of conspiracy theories going around like that, is that people were not happy when they decided to shut down TikTok, but the reason why they did it was the Republicans did it because they were insulting the felon-in-chief, soon-to-be felon-in-chief, I should say. And so they came up with the fact that it was, the Chinese stealing your info, and so you can't have anything Chinese related, and that's not really true. So they passed a bill that is going to ban it, and it went through the Supreme Court and all this stuff. So it will be banned on Sunday, but it became a hugely unpopular law or whatever. And so the Republicans who are trying to save face, the rumor is they're going to let it, disappear during President Biden's watch, and then about a week or so later, after the felon has been introduced as the next president, he will bring it back miraculously from the dead, and everybody will cheer him on, and then they can blame Biden for it happening, which is not true. It was you guys that did it. All right, enough of that. Anniversaries. True Detective Season 1 debuted 11 years ago this week. Star Trek Voyager debuted 30 years ago this week. Elektra debuted 20 years ago this week. WandaVision debuted 4 years ago this week. The Book of Eli debuted 15 years ago this week. They Might Be Giants album Flood debuted 35 years ago this week. Huygens was the first lander to take pictures of Titan before it crashed. That happened, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago also. Where's another one? A plane crashed in the Potomac River after takeoff from Washington National Airport 43 years ago this week. I do remember that, actually. It's crazy. More deaths. Tony Slattery, one of the original Whose Line Is It Anyway cast members from the UK version of it, and who was very funny. And I remember him when my wife and I started watching Whose Line, the English versions of it. We always loved Tony Slattery. He passed away this week. Brent Billingsley, a Major League Baseball player, he died this week as well. And Charles Chuck Longwith, the Williamsburg Foundation president, passed away this week as well. So we still got about maybe another 10 minutes, maybe. We'll see what happens. The The Spider Noir TV show by Prime with Nicolas Cage had to stop production due to the LA fires, similar to Fallout that had to stop filming also, but they should be getting back on target here soon. Frankie Muniz is set to play someone who turns his mother into an AI life coach. I don't know what that means, but okay. Crumble Cookie is set to sell for $2 billion, potentially. Borderline star Samara Weaving debuts the first poster for the comedic thriller. I'll do this one last. Hurricane force winds hit Anchorage, Alaska this week. Yeah, all right, keep it up. Climate change. There it is. Oscars have been moved to Thursday, 123. I can't read that. Miller in Morning trailer. I never saw that, so I don't know if that has debuted this week as well. The next Final Destination movie is set to debut May 16th. I think I talked about that already. A Simpsons-themed restaurant is opening up in Belfast, Ireland, of all places. 27 people have passed away in the LA wildfires. Joanna Fabrics is the next company to go out of business as well. Goonies 2 and Gremlins 3 are being contemplated to be in production soon, with Chris Columbus returning to both of them. He wrote both of them, but did not direct either of them. Ozzy Osbourne, actually, this will be the last one. Ozzy Osbourne plans a Black Sabbath reunion on his last concert tour ever, or his last concert ever that he's going to do, because he's going to retire from concert soon. Giant kidney bean sand dunes have been discovered on Mars. They're a weird looking color, and they're frozen, but they're a little bit weird, so they're kind of weird looking. I have no idea what that is. I don't know what that is, so I'm just going to ignore that. No idea. Nickelback has been named the best rock band of the 21st century, narrowly beating out Linkin Park. So everybody who hates on Nickelback can, Billboard ranked them, and Billboard picked them as number one. Sing Sing is set to break records by being the first movie to debut in theaters and in jail at the same time. Sing Sing is Coleman Domingo, stars as a prisoner who sets up a theater company in jail when he's in jail. And it's based on a true story, so they're going to be releasing the movie and in their movie theaters and in jails at the same time, so that's pretty interesting as well. So before we get to Netflix pays $10 million for LA. Oh yeah, that's right. That's what it was. Netflix for the LA fires, they've decided to donate $10 million to that. That's what that is. Okay. Before I get to the final story of the week, let's do one last death. Leslie Charleston played Monica Quartermain on General Hospital. I remember when I used to watch General Hospital in the 80s and 90s. She was a major force to be dealing with. and I know who she is, and she passed away this week. She's kind of the one that sort of started off this whole band of people passing away this week. All in the Family debuted 54 years ago this week. Legends of the Fall debuted 30 years ago this week. Martin Truex Sr. died. He was the father of Martin Truex Jr., NASCAR superstar. And that's it. So now the final story of the week is Maryland is the leader in the U.S. state with the most foul-mouthed citizens, I guess, people who curse more than anybody else in the country. Maryland is number one, followed by second place by Louisiana. I think New Jersey is all the way back at ninth, and my former co-host, Gigi Fletcher, who is from New Jersey, is surprised that it was that far back. But Maryland is number one in its citizens cursing the most, so fuck yeah, Maryland. Hell yeah. Kick some ass, motherfucking shit, yeah. So good on that, Maryland. And that is that. I got a busy weekend ahead. We got snow, ice, the apocalypse, fun stuff coming up. So next week's show should probably be back on Saturday night because I don't think I got anything going on next weekend. That is, we survive the first week of the Felon's tenure. Could be a law of 4 years. And if we even succeed in keeping our democracy, we'll see what happens. We're not going to talk about that right now. It's Martin Luther King's birthday also on Monday, and it's supposed to snow on Sunday. And we'll have next week's show, we'll have who are going to be playing for the Super Bowl in the NFL, hopefully be the Ravens. So we'll see what happens. All right. I got nothing else right now. I'm tired. I know you are. So thanks for watching. And I got a long day tomorrow, long weekend. So time to shut down the stream. Thanks and take care. Be safe. Stay cool. I'm sorry, stay cool. Stay warm. It's going to be really, really bad. Not just in our area, but Texas is even going to get down to the 20s. And that's crazy. So thank y'all for watching.